Hi guys, welcome to a new video. Today I would like to share with you a race recap of IRONMAN 70.3 Italy. It was an amazing experience and I would like to share with you some tips and tricks and what I would do differently if I could go back. Why was I doing this race? Well, as I detailed in the previous video on the training, I had a really traumatic experience with a syndrome called fibromyalgia, which I managed to heal and overcome, also through endurance sports. And this race, IRONMAN 70.3, was a sort of a message to myself, a message to my girlfriend, that I had turned a page and there was no going back. I had fix this condition and I was going full steam ahead, propelling myself into the rest of my life, because this experience had taught me so much about the true value of health and fitness, which I often took for granted, but it was no more. I had really understood how much that meant to me, how important and pivotal it was in my life. So I wanted to send a clear message to myself about this. There's also another reason why this race was really important to me, but I will tell you more about it at the end of the video. So the location is Cervia in Emilia-Romagna, the middle portion of Italy. It is a beautiful region with sandy beaches, beautiful sea, hills just behind the beach, great food, great culture. It's a really dope spot. The race course is fairly straightforward and it is 1.9 kilometer swim in a kind of L-shaped race course with 4 main turn buoys and 2 sections that are parallel to the beach. The bike course is 90 kilometers, fairly flat, with 1 major climb at the middle. Starts from the city of Cervia, makes its way through some salt flats. Then you have a section on an Italian motorway, and the mid spot of the race is the only climb there is, which is actually fairly sharp. It has some fairly sharp sections. Then it's downhill and come back the way that you came. The run course is half marathon, 21.1 kilometers, and takes place on 3 loops in the city of Cervia, and it is really cool. You get to run through the town. It's a pretty cool run course. So logistical prep before the race was signing up. So I had signed up for IRONMAN 70.3 Barcelona, but I had an injury in my ankle, so I had to postpone to IRONMAN Italy, which was in September. So why did I choose IRONMAN Italy? Well, because it was the easiest race to get to from my hometown of Turin. So starting out, I was super amped up and I thought that traveling for a race would be very cool, but actually it is a lot of added stress. So to travel, you have to pack your bike, organize everything prior. So having a race close to home took all that stress away. I could go down by car without having to disassemble my bike. I could choose a location to sleep basically anywhere because I had my car with me. It was cheap, convenient and fast to get to. I decided to go down 3 days earlier in order to do some bike course recons and to just get a general feel for the city, sort out anything that I had to in order to be prepared on race day. So I got down 3 days early. I had booked a spot in Adriatico Camping, it's called, in Pinarella, next to Cervia. Really cheap, they have a pool and the accommodation is dope. It was like a kind of a converted motorhome. In the camping, in the days prior, it was awesome because I got to meet a lot of people who were also doing the race. Some of them came down with vans, super cool vans, pulling out their bikes. It was an awesome spot. Another reason for getting down to Cervia early was to do the athlete registration, which was extremely easy, and I went there. I was one of the few people there, got to see the IRONMAN village, got to interact with some people who were registering also. They gave me a backpack, the bags, my race bib, my number, and explained what I had to do for bike check-in and a couple of other things. It was super cool to see like the big banners, IRONMAN banners with the M dot with all the names of the participants in it, and I was super stoked to see my name in there. It was all new to me, like I had never done an event like this in my life. I'm not gonna lie, I was very nervous because even though this is not a super hard event, it everything is relative in endurance. So for me, it was an extremely hard event. I had never done anything like it, and the thought of completing it, the thought of having problems during the race was a major cause for pre-race nerves. But I dealt with them just by being confident in what I had done in the months prior, and that the hard work I had put in would pan out in a successful way for me. So I did my last sessions in the town of Chadvia. One was the bike loop recon, 90 kilometers. Got back and did a run. That was the last kind of big session. It was with no intensity. The next day I went back on the bike course and just drove out to the main climb of the ride and did some hill reps on it. I did the climb 3 times just to get used to it and get to know it better, because it had some fairly steep sections. I also did a swim loop recon, so I went swimming on the race course, and I did 2/3 of the loop. So I went out past a couple of buoys and then just came back. And it was, I think, very useful to get to understand what the visibility would be like underwater, what the waves felt like, and especially for the parallel sections to the beach, I got some reference points on land to sight for when I was doing those sections. So I would sight this huge white tower of a hotel, which would allow me to go straight to the next buoy. So Sabrina, my girlfriend, was stuck in Turin working, but she came down to Chadvia as soon as she could, and I was super stoked that she could make it. She was basically the only person who knew I was doing this race. I'd kept it absolutely private. I hadn't told anyone because I wanted it to be my own personal goal. I didn't want any external influences, neither good nor bad, and she was the only one who knew it. Disclaimer, I'm not a pro athlete, I'm not a coach, I'm not an expert. I was the biggest noob on the block when I was doing this event, and I still am the biggest noob ever in triathlon and endurance sports. I'm making basically this video so I don't make the same mistakes I made on race day, and I hope it might benefit you in some way, but don't take this as an expert opinion. I'm sure there's a million things I did wrong, I'm sure there's a million things I could do better. I had no power meter on my bike, so just to understand where I'm coming from. I started out from scratch, so everything I did at this race was based on the knowledge I had at the time. Right now, today, I would do things fairly differently, but I'm absolutely stoked on the result. Okay, so the day before the race was also the day that Ironman Italy took place. So I went on a 1-hour super easy bike ride in the morning. And then the day was all about chilling out. I went to see, of course, the race, and it was an incredible experience in its own, getting to see these superhuman athletes. A big part of the day before the race was gear prep. So they give you all these bags for transitions and the streetwear bag. So in the transition bags, you put all the gear that you need from swim to bike, so all your bike gear. And then you have the transition bag from bike to run, where you have to put everything. So I got all my gear together. One thing I did was I took photos of all the spreads of gear so that I could look at them and figure out if I was missing something, and then proceed to do the final adjustments to the bags so that I could rack them. So a big part of the gear prep was nutrition, of course, both what I was eating the day before the race and fixing everything like gels, putting gels on my bike, putting gels in the bags so I could be ready for the race day. My target was to hit 3 gels per hour, 1 every 20 minutes, and drink with them. So I think it was something like 15 gels plus some extra ones just in case that I put in my run transition bag. So that was kind of the race strategy nutrition-wise. The day before I ate just super plain pasta, had some jam with bread, some cornflakes, and that was basically it. A very low fiber and high carbohydrate nutrition strategy pre-race. And before I knew it, it was time to go to bed, the last night before the race, and I tried to get as much sleep as I could and be as rested as possible for race day. I was very lucky to have Brina with me, who could have helped me with stuff and help me with cooking and just to chill out. So race day finally had come. The alarm clock wasn't very early because the race was going to take place, I think it started at 1 p.m. or 12, so the alarm clock was pretty easy, like 8 a.m. or something. And the first thing I was going to do when I woke up was to eat something in order to have some time to digest it before the race. So I got in some pasta with, I did some sweet pasta with some jam. not much, but just a bit to like carry me over to the start of the race. After breakfast, I put on the race tattoos, which was another incredible experience. And then I packed all my stuff, got my bike out and rode transition zone to rack my bike. We got to transition zone, I put my helmet on, had my chip on, all my bags, the officials checked everything, so I walked in, found my spot, racked my bike, checked that everything was good, took some photos just to be sure in order to correct if I had forgotten something, put my transition bags up in my designated zone and walked towards the swim start. I was undeniably nervous at this point. Brina later told me that she was actually very weirded out by this and kind of upset by it, because she was like, what's this guy become? Like, he's so nervous and not talkative, and she couldn't really understand what I was going through. And I get it. I will explain at the end of the video also why, but it was probably the biggest moment in my life up to that point. So I was very nervous, focused, but very nervous. The day also wasn't really great. The weather was kind of cold, windy, grey, so I had a lot of thoughts in my head going like, am I going to put a jacket on when I ride my bike? Am I not going to put it on and risk being cold? So everything was like a whirlwind. I was still thinking about stuff and figuring out what the final plan would be. The start zone was in a frenzy. The speaker was yelling and getting everybody hyped up. I was also listening to some music and some stuff that I had been listening to during training, like the 5 Agreements video by Harley Johnstone, and I was determined to get it done as best as I could. I was gonna give it my all. Took off my jacket, put on my wetsuit with some help from Brina. I ate a gel before the swim start in order to top up the glycogen stores right up until the end. And then I self-seeded into the swim zone based on time. And I was gonna start at the back end of this group. I was doing the double swim cap setup as advised by a lot of people. So you put on one swim cap, then you put your goggles on, and then you put a swim cap over that in order to secure the goggles. So even if you get kicked in the face or you get a punch during the swimming section because there's a lot of packs forming, the goggles won't fly off, which is something that can be really bad if you're in the middle of a half Ironman swim because you can't see anything. Wetsuit was on and the gates opened for the swim start. It was 5 people at a time. I slowly made my way towards the gate. Whatever was going to happen, I was going to give it my all. This was the moment of truth. Before I knew it, I was right on the starting line. The race director in front of me. 3, 2, 1, go. I stepped across the timing mat and off I went on the swim. I started running into the water. The Adriatic Sea basically is a sandy beach with a bank that goes slowly towards the offshore. So I was running and running and running, and then eventually I dived in after some meters and started swimming. The visibility conditions weren't great at all. It was kind of murky, but you could see perfectly well the feet of people in front of you. So I started following some feet around and sighting every like 6-8 strokes. And that kind of worked out good. It was a lot of people in the beginning, bunched together. So I started overtaking some people and getting overtaken by others. I was making progress. I'd already tried the swim course, so I was feeling fairly confident. I got into a fairly good groove. I was feeling good. My race strategy was to not get winded, so not be out of breath. And I was reading every 2 strokes and sighting every 8 or 10 strokes. And I got to the first buoy. I was very mindful of not taking the inside line, but staying a bit outside in order to not get jammed into like a congestion of people. And that's where like you get kicked in the face, you get punched, especially on the first buoy because everybody's still bunched together. First parallel section to the beach, just kept on focusing on not getting out of breath. Made the turn around the second buoy. Got to the third buoy, which was the most outside one, and I turned right for the second parallel section to the beach. And here I was feeling good, so I started to kind of try and push the pace a bit, not too much, but I was feeling confident, I was feeling good. I was following some feet of people who were swimming kind of like just slightly faster than me. I was focused and in a heightened state of awareness. I made it past the last buoy, turned right, I could see the beach, I could see the big arch on the beach where the swim exit was. There were waves helping me back to the beach. Unfortunately, they were a bit pushing me towards the right of the arch, so I had to kind of navigate that, looking and sighting a bit more often. As the swim exit was getting closer, I started kicking more. One thing that happens in triathlon swimming technique is that you don't kick a lot to avoid oxygen consumption by the quads and the legs. But something a lot of people said is to start kicking a bit, like 2, 3, 4 minutes before you exit, so you get some blood circulation going in the legs and you are prepared for transitioning from swimming to running. So I started kicking a bit more, nothing crazy, but just getting some blood circulation going. Then my hand struck the sand and I was out at the swim exit and into T1. I was feeling good. I took off the top portion of my wetsuit, ran through the showers and ran into T1. I was lucky enough to catch a glimpse of Sabrina cheering me on with my PPR team manager, Roberto Russo, a figure who was very instrumental during the whole training process and my whole discovery of the triathlon world. I got stoked when I heard them. I was focused on nailing transition, which was the hardest one of the two. So I got to the rack zone, I decided to put on my jacket, and I was also going to put on my HR monitor in order to have precise readings during the bike and run. Of course, both these things ended up with me fumbling a bit and losing some time, which I would later on explain why it was so important that I lost these few precious minutes. But in that moment, I didn't even think about it. I just got everything on, put on my helmet. My shoes were already attached to the bike, so I just ran out of transition zone and started pedaling, put my shoes on while I was pedaling, which I had already practiced in training in order to not have to run through transition with your cycling shoes on. I started cycling with one goal in mind: keep my heart rate at a cap of 145 to preserve energy for the run. I had the GPS track of the race course on my Garmin, and I practiced the course as well in the days before in order to not get lost and avoid that problem. The nutrition strategy was to eat and drink every 20 minutes, 2 normal gels, then 1 caffeinated gel, and repeat. The first part of the race was fairly challenging because there were a lot of people bunched together, and this was causing some drafting packs, and I was very careful to navigate them in order to not get a penalty and staying out of the draft zone. And this eventually fixed itself up as we made progress through the race. The race course went through salt flats, then on the Italian motorway, then through towns with history and beautiful spots. As the course went on, I tried to stay as much as possible in the aero position, which I had found in training to give a great advantage at any speed, like 2-3 kilometers per hour more. And especially when I got to the section on the Italian motorway. Here I was aero position all the way, trying to get as aero as possible. It was a very smooth road, wide open. And the only climb of the course was right at the turning point, and it was a fairly punishing climb, I must admit. It had some steep sections, so I was prepared for it. But I must admit, even for a pseudo climber like me, it was challenging. It wasn't like a super easy climb. Made it up to the peak where there was a little town with a lot of people cheering. It was awesome spot, and was kind of like the actual turning point of the race, because after that you had some downhill and the way back. So I was feeling good, I was nailing the nutrition strategy, and I was focused to make a good effort on the second part of the bike leg. But then at 35 kilometers from T2, something pretty bad happened, and that is it started raining. And it started raining actually quite a lot in some spots. And as I was reaching a roundabout, I actually saw a guy take a pretty nasty spill. So I was like, chill out, don't take any risks, and it's better to get to T2, maybe taking a couple more minutes, and avoid a DNF at all costs. DNFing was not an option at this race, I must say. So I slowed down a bit and was very mindful of what I was doing in order to avoid crashes and mechanicals and stuff like that. The most important thing was to finish, and I took this conservative approach, and I think it was a good choice to make, being that it was the first race and the priority was to get to the finish line. I was back on the motorway, back in the aero position. I was kind of getting fatigued right now, and back on the salt flats there were some pretty heavy headwinds, so I had to battle that as well. Suddenly I was back in Chatvia, back in the city. I could hear the voices from the speaker, the music, the commotion. I slipped off my shoes in the last kilometer on the bike, got off the bike smoothly and ran into T2 in order to get changed and start the run. T2 was like lightning fast. I nailed it perfectly. I just put on my Hoka running shoes, put on a visor, my sunglasses, slammed some gels in my back pocket, looked at the run exit and just powered through. Suddenly I was on the course where the day before I had seen these superhuman athletes complete the full distance, and I was pumped. I was pumped to start the run. There was a lot of people around, a lot of cheering. In the moment it was a very fast experience, but if I think about it now, it was super dope. My strategy was to maintain conservative strategy for the first half of the half marathon, and it was going to be to maintain a manageable heart rate and then pick it up in the second half if I was feeling good. Keep in mind, this was the first time I was completing this distance, so everything was new to me. But of course, as I hit the 3-kilometer mark, I had a major problem which had already happened to me during the Olympic distance race, and that was super hardcore pain in the right side, right here. I was super bummed because I thought I'd fixed it during training, doing a little less intensity during the transition, but it just popped up again. It was punishing me. It was pretty hardcore pain. During the Olympic, what I had done was to slow down the run a lot, but today I was gonna try and push through it. I didn't drop my pace. I drank a little bit more and I just powered through it, and eventually after 1 kilometer it went a little bit more down. After 2 kilometers it subsided a bit, and it got to a point where it was fairly manageable pain. So I just powered through it. The run course is awesome in Cervia. There's so many people around, and it's a 3-loop run course. And I was feeling good on the first loop. The most awesome thing was I got to see my girlfriend Sabrina cheering me on with my team manager Roberto, and a new friend who had actually done the full distance the day before, Francesco, cheering me on, and that gave me like super energy to go on. It was a very big mental boost for powering through on the run. There's even a clip of me smiling at a point during the race. The metrics during the run on my watch, I only had heart rate displayed with heart rate zones. I was just looking at that, not looking at split times, not looking at any times in that moment. I had an alert every 1 kilometer that would give me how fast I was going. And man, for my standards, I was flying. I was doing like 440, 430 kilometers at a pace that I was kind of finding manageable. I'm happy and actually a bit surprised by what was going on. I drank Red Bull. I was averaging 1 gel every 20 minutes as the plan was. But after a while, at the back end of the second loop, I started like paying the price. I started being really fatigued, and I just kept on focusing on maintaining a proper technique, maintaining fast footsteps and high cadence, and maintaining form, putting just one step in front of the other, not thinking about the pain, the fatigue, everything. I was focusing on the things I could control rather than focusing on the pain. And I was thinking, if I take care of these things, I will make it through the rest of the race. 16 kilometers, 17-kilometer mark, I was really fatigued at this point, also because the intensity was fairly high, so I was paying the price for the race. 18 kilometers, 19 kilometers, and this was the last section of the final loop, and I started getting a second wind. I put on the last band on my wrist that signaled the fact that I completed the loops. I was doing the last stretch during the village. I passed the only stand on the race course that had some music. That got me a bit more pumped up as well. And I made my way to the roundabout that signaled the difference between who had to do another loop and who went down the finish line chute. And I finally got to take the right turn. So I made my way on the beach and to the finish line chute. The red and black carpet was there to greet me, and it was the first taste of something new. Making my way down that chute was an incredible experience. I could see the final arch. I just ran and put on a higher gear and just ran down that chute and passed the finish line. Man, I was stoked when I got through it. I was so happy. I was really psyched. The volunteer put the medal on, and I was really happy with myself. I was really happy about the event. I was really happy about the experience. This thing that I had visualized myself completing so many times during training had finally become a reality. It had become a reality, and so much hard work tied together and give this result. My finish time was 5 hours and 4 minutes. My secret goal was to go under 5 hours, but unfortunately, as I said before in the video, I made a couple of mistakes, which were the fumbling in transition with the heart rate monitor and the jacket, and I got some rain on the bike, which turns out was very precious time that put me above 5 hours. But being that this was the first event, it was all good, and I was especially proud with my half marathon time, which was 1 hour and 39 minutes, which for me is a very good time. I wasn't expecting that. My previous half marathon time was 2 hours and 1 minute, just for context, and I was stoked. What are the biggest changes I would make if I could go back? Well, that would be number one, have an HR monitor that is okay to swim with. So have an HR monitor that you don't need to put on in transition zone. I think that HR monitors are way more precise than the optical HR on the watch, which is very erratic. In order to nail the perfect race, I think HR is critical. Number two, I would put a power meter on my bike, because having power on the bike is another critical data point to have, so you can measure intensity factor and race based on your FTP, which I did in the full distance, and it can be very, very helpful. Number three would be I would push a bit more on the last 5 kilometers of the run, especially when I was getting mega fatigued. If I look back, I still had some gas to give, so I would push more on the 5 kilometers. Number four would be I would go down one day later and just do a bike course recon. 2 days before is plenty of time to do registration and to get used to the race course. What I would do differently also would be I would get a tri-bike. I would get a tri-bike, absolutely, because it makes a lot of difference. Even though they can be expensive, maybe you can look for one used on subito.it or Craigslist or Facebook Marketplace and get a deal on something maybe not that fancy, but that is more suited to triathlon specific races and no draft races. I didn't get a tri-bike because I wasn't sure if I wanted to keep on going in this direction. One thing I was sure about after crossing that finish line was that I wanted to do a full distance Ironman in the future. It was absolutely apparent to me. I wanted to do it. I was sure about it. Also, seeing the athletes the day before got me super pumped on trying to tackle the full distance. Things I'm super stoked about are the swim. It went really well for my standards. I had a faster time than what I had predicted, or basically was perfectly on that spot. Bike I'm pretty satisfied with, but I think there is room for improvement. Now that I have assessed the distance, I can push more power and see what happens. And I'm super stoked on how the half marathon turned out. It was way beyond my expectations, and I got a new PR, which is not a small thing for me on the back end of a half Ironman. And in the next race, I'm looking forward to build on that time and go even faster. Now I know I can push that time, I know what it feels like, and the next race I'm gonna try and push harder, especially in the last 5 kilometers. The full picture of my motivation to do this race, I touched on it briefly in the beginning. I told you there was something deeper going on, but the fact is this race was a big message to myself, a big statement that a page had been turned. There was no going back, that there was only going into the future. And this was also a big message to my girlfriend, Sabrina, who had been with me, and she had stuck with me that whole year that I was in incredible chronic pain that seemed to have no solution. She stuck with me and she helped me when nobody else was there, when the phone wasn't ringing, when no one was around for me. She was the only person who really stuck with me. And for a new couple like we were, we had only been together 1 year prior to the whole fibromyalgia thing happening, and one of my darkest years of my life happening. Her being there for me during this whole time was a massive statement on her part of love, of sacrifice, of understanding. And to give back to her after all she had given back to me. During the training I understood that I wanted to spend the rest of my life with her. That was absolutely clear, and it kept on popping up during every very long bike ride or long run. And this race, this event, was the statement to her that I wanted to be with her for the rest of my life. And one thing I did was to signal this. I had gotten a ring and I had put it on my shoes and my laces, and I was planning to, if I completed this race, to ask her to marry me. And that is exactly what I did. I finished the race and I did the most important thing that I've ever done in my life. I got down on my knee and I asked her to marry me. And for a second she was stunned and she couldn't believe it. And she had to take a moment to figure out what was going on and to actually understand if she wanted to say yes or no, because she was totally not expecting this. And that is why she couldn't understand why I was so nervous, because this race, this statement was nothing more than the prelude to this question. But it all worked out and we are together now, and super stoked about the fact that I completed Ironman 70.3 and that led to everything that we are experiencing today together. And that I believe to be the core of triathlon, Ironman 70.3, full distance Ironman, long distance triathlon and endurance, is that it is something that is so much more powerful than just the physical activity. It is so mental, and it can reveal so many beautiful things about our life, and also hard to confront things about our life that through endurance we just shed light upon. And in my case, it led to really beautiful things. And that is why I would recommend anyone who has ever had the dream for 1 second to complete an Ironman 70.3 to do it. It is a really awesome experience. I still remember it vividly to this day. I still remember running down the chute. I still remember all the emotions that I was feeling the days before and during the race. And it is something I am very proud of, even though for some people, as I said before, endurance is relative. So for some people, 70.3 is nothing. And even if I look back on it today, I see it as a completely different thing than what I saw it when I was leading up to it, being a complete noob. But it holds value anyway, because it is relatively to what I had done or what you have done in your life, which can be zero. Maybe you've done no events like me, and that alone can be a massive distance to undertake. So yeah, Ironman 70.3 Italy 2019, my first Ironman 70.3. Super stoked to have done it. I would recommend anyone to do it. Ironman 70.3 Italy is an awesome location too. I hope you found this video useful in any way, shape or form. And it would be great if you subscribe to the channel for more content like this coming. It really helps with the motivation to keep on cranking out these videos, which are pretty long to make. Next videos coming to the channel are going to be what I'm doing this year to get faster Ironman 70.3 and full distance Ironman times. And it's going to be talking about tech, training, gear, nutrition strategies, and just basic race strategies, the things that I'm doing differently this year when I get the opportunity to race to get a fast time and hopefully go sub 5 hours on the half distance. Thanks for watching the video. As always, it means a lot to me. Share your comments with what you would have done differently to me, or if you have any other questions, put them down below so that everybody else who sees this video can benefit from the knowledge that we share. Also, if you have any feedback for me on what you would have done differently, that is extremely appreciated, because I'm here to learn and grow, and people who are more experienced than me can give me, and have given me, especially on the full distance, some incredible feedback that I will implement in my training and racing, and I'm looking forward to hearing from you guys. Thanks again. See you in the next video.